surprised her. Isabella asked if she had obtained the method to produce the snow powder, to which Zero nodded, saying the ingredients were simple and commonly found in the workshop. Isabella prepared to hurry back to the Holy City to report to the Pope. Zero nodded again, but Isabella called her back. Was it an illusion? Zero looked the same as before, but why did Isabella feel that there was something different in those light red eyes? Isabella scrutinized Zero for a moment, then shook her head. A grand celebration was taking place in the hall of the border town. All the witches and senior figures were present, toasting and celebrating. Barab also celebrated the upcoming marriage of the chief knight Carter to the Western Star, Miss May. Roland raised his glass to welcome Anna and the witch's return. The glasses clinked lightly, and the girl's eyes brimmed with a sweet smile. Lightning suddenly appeared. Roland laughed and said, rewarding her with a cup of fruit wine. As Roland handed her a cup of fruit wine with added ice, she suddenly leaned in and kissed him on the cheek. It was a custom from the fjords. Roland wasn't as surprised as the first time he experienced it. Since it wasn't their first time seeing it, all of the witches didn't find it too strange. However, Sylvie widened her eyes, then looked at Roland with accusing gazes. Ready to call 911. While everyone was enjoying the food, Roland left the hall and came to the castle terrace. Under the gentle night breeze, Roland felt a chill. Half of the autumn had passed. Nightingale appeared from behind him, holding a thin fur coat. She draped it over Roland. Roland smiled, looking at his own territory. Nightingale pointed in the direction of the brightly lit square. The town was getting more and more lively. Nightingale remembered the first time she snuck into the town. It was a place of utter desolation. But now, standing here, she could feel the joy of the townspeople. Roland looked up at the cloudless, bright night sky, taking a deep breath. He still had a lot to do: expand the scope of education, establish public healthcare, strengthen cultural construction, and encourage childbirth. Looking at Roland's back, Lightning quietly stuffed some food into her bag, only to be caught by Maisie. Lightning pulled Maisie into a corner of the hall and told her that she planned to go exploring tomorrow. She asked if Maisie would like to come along. Without a second thought, Maisie agreed. Lightning and Maisie quickly discussed what they would need to prepare for tomorrow. They shouldn't bring a bag full of food like last time. Maisie patted her chest, saying she understood. As they prepared to leave, Lightning stopped her again, reminding her that this was a secret and they couldn't tell anyone else. Early the next morning, the two set off. Lightning had traversed this journey many times in her memory, so much so that she could find the right direction even with her eyes closed. Their goal was to explore an ancient ruin, a stone tower that was left behind over 400 years ago. Lightning said that if they could bring the ancient books inside the tower to His Highness, he would reward them with lots of food and chicken eggs. This instantly perked Maisie up. The stone tower, half covered with vines and moss, still stood in the forest. Everything around it looked the same as it had several months ago, with no changes. Lightning descended and circled the tower to confirm it was safe before landing gently. Lightning made a shushing gesture, saying that there might be demons here. Immediately, Maisie's tail stood straight up. Although the bombing was successful and did not disappoint His Highness, Lightning found that her flying was no longer as agile as it once was. It was as if there was always a demon chasing her from behind. This was an obstacle brought about by fear. Lightning recited her father's teachings to herself in her heart. She had to overcome this, or she feared she might never be able to fly freely again. This was also why she decided to act on her own without informing His Highness Roland. Perhaps His Highness would scold her later, confiscate her ice cream, and the Sisters of the Witch Union would worry, but she was determined. As the daughter of the greatest explorer of the fjords, Thunder, Lightning could not accept a cowardly version of herself. This time, she brought a pistol and took Maisie along. Lightning pointed at the top of the broken tower, saying that she would go up to check the situation first and asked Maisie to be careful. The little girl kept encouraging herself in her heart as she walked down the stairs step by step. As she reached the corner of the hallway, she peeked around quietly. The collapsed wooden door was shattered, and there was no sign of the devil at the entrance to the basement. At this moment, she heard a faint voice floating from the darkness. It was hardly audible, but it was extremely familiar. Lightning shivered involuntarily and nearly turned around to run away in panic. She gritted her teeth, suppressing the fear that welled up in her heart. This time, the calling sound was much clearer, and the tone was exactly the same as last time. It kept repeating, "Help me." Lightning was startled, and she decided to fly back first to consult with Maisie. After briefly explaining the situation, Maisie suggested that they could extinguish the torches and sneak in, so the demons wouldn't be able to see them. Maisie could transform into an owl, allowing them to have night vision. Lightning felt useless, having run away at the first sign of fear. Maisie rubbed against Lightning's face, comforting her, suggesting no one could continue to shout for months under a demon's siege. Plus, as an adventurer, shouldn't Lightning be interested in these peculiar adventures? After hesitating for a moment, Lightning decided to follow Maisie's advice. Lightning wanted to overcome her fear, but why was Maisie so interested in exploring the ruins? She asked Maisie, "Is it because of the rewards of a basket full of eggs?" The owl blinked its round eyes and turned its head away. The atmosphere relaxed considerably, and Lightning gradually calmed down. Once again standing at the entrance of the ruins, Lightning took a deep breath, tightly grasping her revolver, and cautiously walked into the profound darkness. Lightning slowed her pace, carefully testing the edge of the stairs, then cautiously made her way down. After a turn, she suddenly saw a magic stone on the wall brightening the room. She carefully walked to the junction of the staircase where she saw water dripping down. At this point, the cries for help became clearer, as if they were ringing in her ears. In the center of the room was a stone platform with several figures standing on it. From their appearance and robust bodies, they were undoubtedly demons. In the middle of the high platform, encircled by demons, stood a massive ice cube, within which was a woman dressed in a magnificent robe. Lightning felt somewhat scared seeing the demons, but Maisie said those demons should already be dead. Before she could finish speaking, Maisie had already flew towards the cube, heading towards the high platform. This startled Lightning so much that she froze on the spot, forgetting to reach out to hold Maisie back. By the time she reacted, Maisie had already pounced on a demon. The demon that was pecked a few times by the owl collapsed with a bang and immediately turned into a pile of ash. Lightning closely observed these stone-like creatures, their bodies covered with tiny cracks. Maisie flew to the top of the ice cube and pecked fiercely. This time it didn't shatter but instead emitted a crisp knocking sound, indicating its extreme hardness. Lightning placed her hand on the cube, a cold chill seeping through her skin. The woman inside the cube seemed so lifelike, with her long blue hair. Not far from her was a red magic stone, repeatedly echoing the plea, "Save me," over and over again. Lightning and Maisie quickly flew to the outskirts of the town to report the situation to Roland. After listening to Lightning's description, Roland couldn't help but gasp in surprise. He looked at Lightning and thought to himself, Lightning was too audacious, daring to investigate the ancient ruins known to be inhabited by demons, with only a pigeon on her side. What was even more frightening was that there was a witch sealed in the ruins. Lightning also brought back the magic stone. As they opened the box, an anxious female voice suddenly appeared in everyone's ears. The sound was sometimes near, sometimes far, and was quite unnerving. Nightingale revealed herself, detecting magic within the stone. Roland thought for a moment, knew this appears to be a magical recording device that can continuously emit sound. Roland patted Lightning on the head, gently advising her, "Don't do this again, especially venturing into dangerous places without permission." He then looked at Nightingale, telling her to gather all members of the Witches' Union and axe to the office. The plan to search the ruins might need to be expedited. Once everyone had arrived, Roland narrated from beginning to end of the discoveries Lightning had made. Anna understood Roland's implications. The witch might still be alive, and through her, they could learn about events from over 400 years ago. Scroll, however, mentioned that the witch might not belong to that era. Leaf stated that the witch might not necessarily be on their side, a statement that made Roland ponder. Indeed, they both had valid points. If the ruins were left behind by the church, the witch sealed inside might well be on the side with the church. Lightning mentioned the witch's extravagant clothing, Roland suggesting she might be a high-ranking individual. If the woman harbored any bad intentions, there was no guarantee that her abilities would not pose a threat to the witch union. Lily suddenly spoke up, surprised that everyone was considering whether the witch was on their side. Rem tried to stop her, but Lily did not cease and questioned how someone from 400 years ago could still be alive. Lightning argued that the woman was completely different from the lifeless demons, her skin was smooth, and her lips full of color. Maisie kept nodding in agreement. Wendy stepped in to interrupt their argument, saying that regardless of whether the witch was dead or alive, they had to give it a try. Wendy suggested that if she turned out to be a church witch, all they needed to do was attach the god's stone of punishment before she woke up. Moreover, they had Nightingale and Anna. Most importantly, this witch might have information about the calamity 400 years ago. Roland agreed with Wendy, intelligence about the demons was crucial to Border Town. He had to take the initiative in the future confrontations. Roland looked towards Axe, asking about the status of the First Army. Axe saluted and stated they could only mobilize a maximum of 50 men. The other squads were already recruiting refugees from various places, and they needed to leave forces behind to prevent Timothy from launching a large-scale attack on the Western Territory. Roland nodded in acknowledgement and began to strategize. Suddenly, Rem looked out and gasped. Everyone followed her gaze out the window and was taken aback. Unbelievably, Roland looked outside of the window and saw that the gloomy sky was unexpectedly filled with snow. It was snowing, which was unusual. To his knowledge, the Western Territory only experienced snowfall once during winter, and it wasn't even winter yet. Outside the city walls, demonic beasts were slowly advancing towards the city wall. Roland turned towards Axe, inquiring if there was ever snowfall during the last month of fall. Axe turned into a serious expression, stating that he hadn't experienced such an event in his 8 years in the town. Opening the window, Roland pondered. The heavy snowfall implied the coming of the month of demons, and during this time, the entire Western Territory would face the threat of demonic beasts. Deploying the First Army was out of the question, even transporting the witches by hot air balloon had become dangerous. He had no choice but to suspend the rescue plan, waiting until the sky clears up. On Slumbering Isle in the fjords, Thunder was drinking hot, steaming fish soup. He was eager to start his next adventure. The sights he'd seen on his last expedition had left him stunned. He was very curious about what exactly was on that piece of land. Tilly smiled and mentioned that she planned to personally go to Border Town, also intending to experience the month of demons in the western region, and she invited Thunder to join her. Thunder was silent for a moment, but ultimately refused. He explained that her daughter is having a good time there. After all, anything could happen on an adventure, and he had lost her mother already. He didn't want to lose her as well. Tilly understood what he meant, and she handed him a piece of paper, beginning to talk about business. Although Thunder had helped them a lot, the price for hiring witches had to be according to the rates on the paper. Thunder finished the fish soup in one gulp and laughed out loud. He chose 3 witches and generously offered 4,800 gold. After he left, Ashes hesitated, voicing her concern that although this could bring a substantial amount of wealth to Slumbering Isle, the risk of the abilities of the witches could also be exposed in the process. She was afraid that this information could reach the church. Slumbering Spell is a brand new guild formed by Tilly. Here, explorers from the Fjord Islands can hire witches with suitable abilities to assist them in their adventures or to provide various services like building houses, manufacturing, and repairing items. Making money isn't Tilly's main concern. Instead, she hopes to use the guild to introduce more people to Slumbering Isle and establish relations with them. Thunder once said, "Fear comes from the unknown," so she hopes to start in the fjords, making people accept witches, and understand that witches are not different from them, and are certainly not emissaries of demons. As their conversation went on, they shifted the topic to discuss that Maisie had not yet returned to Slumbering Isle, and they were worried about what might have happened. Ashes mentioned that the living conditions in Border Town were good, and she was worried that the witches might not want to come back. Tilly suddenly suggested, "In that case, let's go there." Ashes was stunned for a moment before she could respond. Tilly laughed, stating that they had promised to help Roland fight against the demonic beasts and bring back the other witches on the way. They needed to start selecting the witches to go to Border Town in the morning. Most importantly, she wanted to see what her annoying brother had turned into. Meanwhile, Roland climbed onto the city wall where soldiers equipped with revolving rifles each watched over their posts. The new city wall was much taller than the previous stone wall, preventing demonic beasts from leaping over. As Roland made his way along the wall, the soldiers straightened their backs and saluted him. Their high spirits already marked a stark contrast to the original state of the militia just a year ago. Just then, the sound of a fierce argument came from behind. Roland looked toward the noise source and saw a group of people arguing loudly in the middle of the residential area. One of them, dressed in a black and white uniform, appeared to be a municipal official. Carter charged directly into the crowd, subduing the instigators of the fight. The prince's personal guards ordered everyone to stop, and the situation was quickly brought under control. Seeing Roland, the man who had been beaten fell to his knees. Roland turned to the official, whose face had been bruised, and asked him what had happened. The official claimed that the refugees had initiated the fight. He had been distributing food when he was suddenly attacked by the damn Mad Dog refugee. The man restrained by Carter immediately shouted in defense that the official was lying. He claimed that these people had colluded with serfs to extort them, charging money for each serving of food. When Roland had taken them in, he clearly stated that the food was to be distributed for free. Roland was slightly taken aback. The Eastern Region refugees had been thoroughly vetted by the City Hall, and all craftsmen, literate individuals, or those with special skills had been moved into the inner ring of the town. In theory, those remaining were ordinary civilians. However, the tone and vocabulary of the man didn't match those of a commoner. On the contrary, the City Hall member, who was full of derogatory words such as damn and mad dog and constant cussing, was extremely disappointing. Roland knew most likely this official was a knight from Duke Ryan, who later surrendered. Roland affirmed that he did say that housing and food would be provided for free before they officially joined Border Town, and this promise still stood. He reiterated this in front of all the refugees. Upon hearing this, the refugees loudly praised Roland's kindness and shouted, "Long live the prince!" But, as a brawl had occurred, Roland ordered the personal guards to bring all the people involved to the castle. He wanted to personally adjudicate this incident. The official's face suddenly turned pale. Roland then looked at him, asking about the charged porridge and what was really going on. Back in the castle hall, Roland took his seat at the head and looked down at the two men. After everyone had a chance to tell their side of the story, he finally knew what had happened. The official, a man named Koya, resented being stripped of his knighthood and was annoyed by the tedious paperwork of the city hall. His frustration had vented towards the refugees. He took the opportunity of distributing porridge to deliberately charge the refugees and stir up trouble between the two groups. In fact, Koya had been charging for porridge for several days already. Because of his conspicuous city hall uniform, most refugees stayed silent out of fear of reprisal from an official, which only emboldened him. It wasn't until today that someone stood